All right. I got a little plea, something I'm going to beg of you as good Catholics in the public space. Hey, I'm Father Mark Mary with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and this is Ascension Presents. My brothers and sisters in your world, in your life, in your social media, as representatives of Christianity and the Catholic faith, please be men and women of good reason and of good critical thinking and of good discussion. So as you're all aware, like if you're on Twitter or you're wherever, it's like there's a lot of like back and forth and a lot of like, okay, you think this, but you're dumb. Here's what I think, or here's why it's so dumb. And so often, on both sides, on all sides, the discourse is like really very poor reasoning. And I find it drives me nuts, and it's actually a lot of bit repulsive, and it ends up doing more harm than good, and it's a growing problem, and we just need to look at it. And again, like, let's just found it in our tradition, like as Catholics, as Christians, like, we are men and women of radical faith, 100%, but faith is not contrary to reason, right? And there's a reason that all of us who become ordained priests, we go and we study philosophy first. We get a foundation in how to think and critical thinking and logic, and we learn some of the language, right? And it's upon this foundation as well, like, that we're able to have like a real sort of intelligible, intellectual, reasonable discussion about God, about morality, etc., right? And we look at like St. Augustine, we look at the Cappadocian Fathers, we look at the Scholastics, at Thomas Aquinas, like, it's systematic, like there's good reasoning, there's hopefully like attempts to like represent well the other's position. Like, there's not going for cheap shots or for sound bites. So just a little reminder that like poor reason or poor like intellectual integrity, let's call it intellectual integrity, can be as harmful potentially and as effective in pushing people away as poor morals, right? And I think some of us can sort of have that experience of, we have somebody and they're like radically misrepresenting the church or what we believe or how we act or etc. And it's like, you're not even pretending to try and represent us well. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about, and it like really pushes them away. And sometimes, like, although it's maybe well-intentioned, right, like Catholics and Christians can have that same effect on people. And we like really misrepresent and don't even like really pretend to sort of try and represent well the other person's point or argument. And then it just like this, we get dismissed, right, as people of like poor reason. And which is already something that people kind of are trying to use as like an easy dismissal of men and women of faith. Like, you're sort of like, you're unreasonable people. Okay. We don't want to add to that narrative. What I'm going to say here now is like, what are some of the common mistakes I see like Catholics making in their discourse? The reality is, you could probably take every sort of critical thinking like fallacy or like logical fallacy, and we're doing all of them. I'll name a couple of them, highlight some that really get to me, and then again, hopefully offer a little bit of a remedy. So what would be some of them? Like straw man. Like, we do a lot of straw man where it's like, we're the victims, if you will, like, of a lot of straw man arguments where you like pretend to sort of state what they're saying, and then you just come and destroy it, right? But without actually doing at all an attempt of really representing it, right? And they know that, and so they know that like your counter proposal is like, it's sort of invalid because it's not actually responding to what they believe in. And it drives me nuts when people do it to us, but it also drives me nuts when Catholics do it to other people, because it just pushes them away. And it kind of makes us look like men and women of poor reason. Straw man, like dishonest representation, like, again, just like trying to communicate something that like not even close. There's 1,000 examples of ways in which we can do that. Intellectual laziness, just not really sort of, again, trying to actually do some of the work of communicating with, or of understanding the other person's ideas, and then sort of really sort of like thoroughly rebutting them. Lack of distinctions. It's like, my friends, we got to be able to make some distinctions of like, just in general. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about, but like the idea and the application. Just make sure, and as a practice of intellectual like integrity that we're making and able to make distinctions. Name calling, right? Just like straight ad hominem, like, this is wrong because you're dumb. Okay, like that's not a great look. It's not effective. It's not a great look. And then weak or false analogies, right? And there's like, where it's like, okay, well, this thing happened in this way, and this is kind of like that, therefore it's happening in the same way for the same reasons. And where does that happen? A lot of places. I think one of them, like, we love to do it in the Catholic space. It's like, oh, you're mad at me, and you're saying mean things to me. But also people said we're mad at the early Christians and persecuted them. And therefore, it's like your persecution of me or your anger at me is the same as their anger. Therefore, I am like an early Christian martyr. It's like, well, maybe they're mad at you because you misrepresented their point and you were just kind of rude and a jerk to them. And maybe it's not because of your sort of noble proclamation of the truth. And you see that a lot of like self-named kind of like martyrs who are just kind of like meanie heads, you know. And it's like, that's just not good reason, and that's a very poor analogy, and it's unattractive. So what can we do about it? First of all, is like just stop it. Okay. Number two is let's have some patience, right? Let's have some patience. Let's try and allow the Lord to heal us of maybe some insecurity, because sometimes we might sort of simulate responding to something because we feel like insecure, like we feel like we have to, we feel like there's an urgency to it, and our response is actually like very sort of poorly crafted or lacking some sort of logic. And again, like, it's an attempt at doing something good, but it can actually do a lot of harm of making sort of Catholics or the faithful look like men and women of poor reason or poor morality, or just make us look like meanie heads, right? The truth is true, and the truths of the faith and the truths of reasons, like, they're true, right? And if we really have honest, sincere conversation and like discourse, and we're okay with listening to somebody for some space, to actually listen to them, but also to kind of win their permission for us to speak, like, so they'll be willing to listen to us. Like, it doesn't have to be a fight, and it doesn't have to be a competition. That we have confidence in the truth. We have confidence, radical confidence in the truth. Like, what the church teaches is true. That God is who he says he is true. Catholic morality is true. And we can come to these conversations with a confidence. And often, as you've known in your experience in life, those who kind of like have sort of the confidence, right? Like, they're a little bit more patient because they're not insecure about what they believe and what has been handed down to them. And so I just encourage us, certainly like critical thinking courses can be good. Studying some philosophy can be great. Really taking some time to understand and do some investigation on what these people believe, talking to people who have different beliefs than us, etc. All of that can be helpful for us developing our capacity to enter into this discourse. But just kind of the final thing is this, is like, we just want to be men and women of good reason. The truth is true, and we are servants of the truth, but we're also like, what a gift it is that truth has been revealed to us, right? And we have a lot of confidence in this. I believe that we are called to and have a long tradition of intellectual sort of rigor and intellectual integrity. And we want to be men and women of moral integrity in all areas, but also of intellectual integrity. And if we're not, we can end up doing more harm than good. And so, for the sake of Father Mark Mary's peace of mind, for the sake of the discourse, please check yourself. Please check yourself. Please check your logic. Please check your reasoning. Please check yourself for fallacies, and be good and upright Christians, men and women of reason and of the truth. So there we go. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful and an encouragement. And look forward to seeing you again next week. Remember, we are pilgrims on the third. Somos peregrinos, poco a poco, little by little. Vamos a llegar. We're going to make it. God bless y'all.